HVACR Association and our Facebook event called Running Service Amid the COVID-19 Virus. There are several names that we might come up with for it, but the bottom line is we're concerned about making sure that not only our members, but that the entire Arkansas HVACR industry knows how to run service calls for homeowners and businesses during this time. One of the things that we feel is very important as an association is that we give recognition to the person who helps us get through everything, and that's God. But we have 8 chapters around the state, and before every chapter meeting, we always have an opportunity to say grace over the meal. Today we have Dan Chapman with Chapman Service Company, who is the president of the Central Chapter. We've asked him if he would please ask God to give grace on this event.
Thank you. Let us pray. Let the Lord bless you and keep you. Let the Lord make his face shine upon you, especially during these difficult times. Thank you, Lord, for all your many blessings. In Jesus' name we ask and pray. Amen.
Dan, thank you. It's very important that we always remember that we have a source that we can depend upon. And I think especially during this time period, it's important for us to realize that we're not by ourselves, that God is there ready to help give us peace in this time of struggle. One of the things that we want to make certain is that you understand that we are not medical professionals. We're heating and air conditioning contractors. That's all that we know. Now, that's not exactly true. Dan's also an electrician. But apart from that, we're 2 guys who love and are involved in the heating and air conditioning industry. And I've done lots of research trying to put together this package tonight so that we could talk about 15 different things that you could consider that you would do in your company as you send out technicians to do service for homeowners. Understand that these are thoughts. We're very careful to not say that these are recommendations. And the reason we say they're not recommendations is that we don't want to mislead you. There are no silver bullets. There is no one thing will do everything we need for it to do. So what we ask you to do is just consider them and see whether or not it fits your company. But one thing we know for sure, we have got to do things as an industry to protect our technicians as they go out amid this virus, and we've also got to make sure that we're protecting our homeowners. We're going to start off tonight with our first item. Oh, before I forget, I want you to know that you can send in a question. If you'll type it in, we'll take it during the course of the program, and then certainly we'll dedicate quite a bit of time at the end of the program to be able to answer your questions. Dan, would you take our first issue?
Sure. Because of the COVID-19 virus, we've had to adapt to make our facility safer and healthier, and also to help protect our technicians and our customers. We start out each day by doing a temperature check. That includes myself, all office personnel, and all technicians. It's very simple, it's painless. We use a little temperature gun. It takes about 5 seconds for each employee, and that way we know we're healthy and we're ready to go.
One of the things I want to add on that is make sure that you log that in. You want to be able to document in the future that you were doing at least the minimum to make sure that your people were healthy before you sent them out into the field. Dan, let's go to number 2.
The office personnel has had to adapt as well. When they call our customers, they're going to ask how everybody's feeling, if anybody is sick in the house, and then it's also a good time for them to let our customers know that our technicians are going to be taking some extra safety procedures as well, and that's to help them and the customer, such as they'll be wearing masks, gloves, safety glasses, using disinfectants, and not shaking hands.
You know, these are things that we need to consider doing because it demonstrates that we are trying to do our best to take care of our tech and of our homeowner. Not just because we want to demonstrate it, but because we also want to make sure that everyone is safe. And we're living in a strange time, and we all know that. Let me throw this in right here if I can. Our industry is full of a bunch of really good folks. And frankly, most of them are men that are out there doing the service calls. So let me be politically incorrect. Our guys think that they're tough. They think that nothing will ever happen to them. And if they do have something that happens to them, they're going to suck it up. Well, ladies, I apologize for eliminating you from that, but you have to live with us, so you know what I'm talking about. the technician and the contractor has to make sure that we understand that, yeah, we're tough and yeah, we suck it up. And that's what we've got to do in this time period. But we've also got to use precautions. And this whole program is about what precautions should you consider doing in your company. Our third item is what do you do when you call somebody and they say, yeah, they've got somebody in the home that's been diagnosed with COVID-19. How do you handle that? Dan, what would you do?
We've talked about this, and we've decided that if somebody does have the virus inside the home, that we're going to have to give them at least a 14-day pass, and then we can contact them again in 14 days to see how they're doing and see if something has changed where we're able to get in. I don't want to put our employees or anyone else at jeopardy and for the virus.
You know, one of the things that we've got to make sure that we do is tell our employees what's going on. If you make the phone call and they say, well, I've got somebody and it's just an allergy, this is allergy season for a lot of it, and just because somebody's coughing or sniffing doesn't mean that they've got the COVID-19.
That's right.
However, I think it is important that the tech be informed what's going on in the home. It's the ethical thing to do. And then to give that tech the opportunity to say, I'm not so comfortable with doing that. And then you make the call. Now, what if somebody actually has COVID-19 and they want the service call? And by that I mean the heating and cooling is off completely. We're going into a time of the year when, the temperature's moderating. One day you might need a little heat, the next day you might need a little air conditioning. One of the things that you can do if you're in the air conditioning mode is say, hey, you got windows. Raise your windows, and you might want to use a box fan. The next thing is that, well, maybe you need a little heat. Well, maybe they need to get some good, safe electric wall heaters or, plug-in electrical heaters. Got to make sure they're safe so if they tip over, they don't set the house on fire. But my point is that central heating and air conditioning is great and wonderful, and we all wish that we had it. However, during this difficult time, we may have to compromise our comfort just a little bit when a person has the COVID-19 and when their heating and air conditioning goes out. Now, let's say that's not the case, that they've not been diagnosed with COVID-19. Dan, you were saying your company does some things about that I thought was kind of cool.
Well, what we've started is when we make our appointments with our customers, we ask them, do you want to have a contact or a no contact spring service? Out of the dozen or so that we've done today, I would say at least a half or more ask for a no contact, which means the technicians come out, we call the house, let them know the technician is there. The technician will go ahead and clean the unit, do everything he can on the outside, and then we will call the customer. They can turn the air conditioning on so we can check the Freon. And it's virtually just over the phone that we're doing things. Technicians completely outside and isolated from the customer. And they feel real good about that.
Do they wear booties?
Well, of course. We've been wearing booties, Tom, for 20 years, right?
Yeah.
And nothing has changed. In fact, when I say nothing has changed, if you're not wearing booties, the customers really enjoy it when they see the technicians with booties on. You're not tracking dirt throughout the house, and you're keeping it very clean.
In the past, it's always been that we were not going to track in some kind of dirt. Now then, we have to be concerned about, are we going to track out something from the house, maybe some virus that we got on our feet. Now, we'll talk more about whether or not you can pick up a virus from walking through a house in a little bit. But you know what? You need to be wearing booties anyway because you don't want to track up the person's house. And the customer loves it. They consider it professional. Mm-hmm. And so we know it's not going to hurt. And it might, let me emphasize the word, it might be of some help to you. The next item is to wear a mask. This is so confusing because basically I see all kinds of contradicting advice. In my research, at first they said the only person that needs to wear a mask is a person who has COVID-19 because they don't want when they sneeze or cough for that to spray everywhere. But it wasn't really necessary for anyone else. And then all of a sudden you see them saying, well, maybe it's a good idea to wear a mask. And I would say this, if you have access to like a surgical mask or even a a dust mask like you would use if you were painting or something, then it might give your homeowner some confidence, some peace of mind that you were trying. Dan, today I was in the grocery store checking out, and the person who was checking me out had on a surgical mask. I don't know where she got it. They're hard to come by right now. But she had it, and she had it coming down below her nose. And I thought, what's up with this? You got a surgical mask that somebody could be getting good value out of, and yet you're wearing it just over the mouth and not over the nose. Like, that's, okay.
I saw the same thing, and I have to wonder, are you not breathing through your nose?
Yeah. So it's important that you wear a mask if you have one available. However, stop and think about this. Be logical about it. If you're in a home and if you have droplets that are in the air, thus they're airborne, and if you're breathing it, and if the mask is stopping it, then you're carrying it with you to the next house, aren't you?
That's it.
So it may very well be, had one guy today give a good idea, and that is every person should have multiple masks so that you're not wearing from one house to the other. Now, I know we're at a time to where you can't get one, let alone multiple. So at least at the end of the day, what would you do to disinfect that mask? Well, one of the good things to do is you would consider using a UV light that you may have there in your shop and putting the mask in front of the UV light. Also read a thing today from Stafford Medical Center, and it suggested putting a mask in a regular oven at 158 degrees for 30 minutes. Now, one of the things you do have to remember is that the more you do to disinfect the mask, the more likely it is to hurt the efficacy of the mask in the first place. So you can't throw it in an oven at 500 degrees and say, well, I'll do it in 5 minutes.
Right.
Because then the efficacy of the mask is basically gone. But why would you consider a mask? Well, think about this just a minute. A person that coughs has droplets traveling at the speed of about 50 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. If they sneeze, it's traveling at the speed of about 100 miles an hour.
Right.
That's pretty fast moving droplets. So there's no telling where it's going to go. So that points out how critical it is that the person that does have the virus needs to wear a mask, and you may very well want to consider wearing one yourself to protect yourself from that.
Well, our technicians, when they walk up to the house, they walk up without the mask, and then they'll talk to the customer and ask the customer, do you want us to wear a mask? And that way it's a precaution for them and as well as the technician. We have several of course, the little surgical masks that everyone else has been using, and when the guys get through, they'll put it in a Ziploc, not just throw it on the floor of the van, but they'll secure it in here, and then when they'll go to the next house, they'll be able to use it again. And then at the end of the day, we were going to try to sanitize with UV lights and then an alcohol spray that goes along with that.
Another one of the recommendations that's very similar to wearing the mask is to also wear some sort of safety glasses. And again, the reason for that is so that any droplets in the air don't end up in your eyes. You have this kind of T-zone that you read about in the journals about that's where the virus is more likely to get into you, through the T-zone, through the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. So anything that you can do to cover those up can be helpful. You're not looking at protecting yourself from something that's like a dangerous particle that's going to get into your eyes in an industrial situation, but just something that kind of keeps the moisture that's in the air off of you. Then wear gloves. It just makes sense to wear gloves. We know that the virus lives on plastic and steel, and we're not exactly sure how long it does. I've read things that say a couple of hours, and I've read things that say a couple of days.
I've read 3 hours on steel and 24 hours on cardboard.
Wow. So, take in consideration that you're going to wear some gloves, and also remember that you're going to dispose of those properly, which we'll cover again in just a minute. Dan, what about the filter grill?
Well, I was going to also mention that if you're going to be in a situation that a surgical mask is not going to be what it needs to be, then if you go, you've heard about the P95s, which is a great mask. It covers 95% of the particles coming in. But if you go with the P100, with filters and a mask, then you're a lot safer. It's a lot more connected to the face, and you're not going to be breathing in those particles.
What's up next, Dan?
Wearing gloves, as we
Yeah.
previously mentioned, gloves. In fact, I have a customer that requested that we wear gloves tomorrow. So obviously they're all on all of our trucks, so that won't be a problem. But this also will help reduce your contact as a technician with any virus on the surface. And when you're changing a filter, all those particles that were in the air could come back through that filter and land either on the filter grill or in the filter.
So obviously your hands are going to be touching the filter grill because you've got to pull it down in order to gain access to a filter, and we all check filters when we're running a service call. So you want to make sure that you have disinfected that filter grill.
Right. The CDC recommends cleaning and disinfecting the filter grill just as much as replacing the filter. And guys, when you change the filter, we've had these out for years, but if you use a filter bag, it will also help collect all of the dust bunnies, nothing's dropped in the house, and if there's any particles or viruses on the filter, you put it in a nice bag and you're saving anything from getting in the customer's house or on yourself as well.
And if you don't have a fancy bag like Dan just showed us, you can always use a trash bag, right?
Exactly.
You're going to throw your trash, put your trash in a bag, not just throw it in the truck. And here's the deal. When you remove a filter, we're at a point that people want to say, what can I do? Well, I know what I can do. I can do a better filter. I'll use a pleated filter. I'll use a MERV 13, a MERV 16. What about that? And my thoughts to you for you to think about are this. Almost no return air path is perfectly sealed. They leak like a sieve. Y'all know that. So if you all of a sudden take the filter that has been working and replace it with a much better filter, then the resistance on the air flowing through there is going to be so much greater. What's going to happen then is that the unit's going to start pulling air from who knows where.
That's right.
The crawl space, the attic, and it may very well wind up being that none of the air winds up getting filtered at all because the filter you put in was such a good filter that it worked too good, and because of the leaky return, it pulled air from someplace else. So run a test. Make sure that you understand what the pressure drop is across the coil, understand what the available static pressure is before you start upgrading that filter, because we don't want to all of a sudden sell people a good product but put it in a bad application.
And filtration is key to a nice, clean, healthy air in your home or your business. So again, making the filter air go through the filter is key to having the clean air filter. Electronic filters, purifiers, kill 99 to 0.98% of all the allergens, dust mites. Even we have one on the market that kills the influenza virus, which is the flu virus. Why wouldn't you want to have that in your home or office to keep your family and your employees breathing healthy, clean air? They say the coronavirus is 0.005 to 0.3 microns. Well, again, this electronic filter purifier kills viruses all the way down to 0.1. So that's right in that range.
But nothing's perfect. You want to make sure that when you're out talking to a homeowner, you don't convince the homeowner that this is going to be a complete protection for them. We do not want our industry to get a reputation that we took advantage of a crisis and took advantage of people in a home who were ready to believe anything. We've got to make sure that we're in a informational mode, not in a sales mode.
Right. We've been selling these filters for years now. And education, I think once you educate your customer on what the filter does, then they'll make up their own mind whether they want it.
Number 11, Dan.
Maintain recommended social space. Well, it used to be 3 feet. Now they've doubled it to 6 feet. It's not really that bad. 6 feet, just gives us a little bit more room to walk around in. So 6 feet is the social space that we're all trying to keep away from customers, maybe even other employees, people out on the street. 6 feet.
And wash your hands.
And wash your hands. Guys, it's recommended that you wash your hands at least once an hour for 20 to 30 seconds. Now, if you're out working and you're putting a fan motor in, you got grease all over your hands, and it hadn't been an hour yet, you can still wash them. Nobody's going to get mad, all right? And everyone should have at least some of this hand sanitizer on the truck. You can get the ones with the D-clips where the technicians can have it right there on their belt, so there's no excuse not to be able to do this. This will really save a lot of germs being passed, and it's just highly recommended.
So what do you do if you cannot find hand sanitizer? Because you know that is a very scarce product right now. Well, let me give you a recipe that comes from the World Health Organization. Got your pen and pencil? Write it down. Use 1 2/3 cups of alcohol, 2 teaspoons of glycerol, which is only to make the alcohol where it doesn't dry out your hands quite so much, and then 1/4 cup of distilled water. That recipe is found in the publication that you can find on our website at arhvacr.org. Click on that paper and you'll go down through that paper and you'll see that it's down there around number 13. But the recipe is there, so you don't have to wait on the distillery to decide that they're going to make hand sanitizer for you and then stand in the line to get some. You may have seen that on the paper on YouTube today.
Tom, one of my technicians drove by there today, and there was a line wrapped all the way around the block. They were standing 6 feet apart. But if you're gonna go down to the distillery to get your sanitizer, plan to be there a little while.
So again, you can make your own. 1 2/3 cups of alcohol, 2 teaspoons of glycerol or something that will keep that alcohol from drying out your skin so much, and then 1/4 cup of distilled water. That's not from us. Not only are we not medical professionals, we're not cooks, right? This comes from the World Health Organization. Proper disposal.
Well, also washing your hands. When you're doing that, you don't want to use the customer's towel. That would be a little bit of a faux pas. Always bring a towel with you in your truck. That way you can wash your hands. You can go out, wipe them. Don't wipe them on your pants, all right? Just wipe them and clean with that, and then use your hand sanitizer. And remember, 20 to 30 seconds on that hand washing.
All right, we have an opportunity to have some questions while we get to see whether or not we can answer them. Let's see, Teresa said alcohol is good for cleaning surfaces, that she's doing that quite a bit. Thank you, Teresa. It says we had a customer seem more nervous when our service manager went into the home wearing a mask. We're being more cautious, but pardon me, I stuttered, didn't I? We're being more cautious, but also trying not to create more fear. You know, that's a very good point. And I think that, as Dan suggested in the beginning, when you are calling someone to find out the conditions in the home, that you would tell them, hey, we're going to be doing this, and
Right.
It's for your protection. By the same token, if the homeowner says, ooh, that scares me, then, hey, the homeowner has the ultimate call, as long as that's not infringing
Right.
on the safety of the tech.
Well, you know, again, if the technician walks up there without the mask, it's like normal, okay? Then they ask, can I wear a mask? If they need to wear a mask, well, then they're gonna wear one. It's totally up to the customer what they feel comfortable with, and the technician as well.
Sean says, has anyone had an influx of customers wanting a certain UV light? And I think I've heard that a lot of folks are hearing people want to buy UV lights. And we're going to talk about that. In fact, let's just jump to that. Can we do that?
We've installed several UV lights over the years. They've really upgraded the quality of them over the last year or so. And yes, UV lights are great. They kill mold, mildew, bacteria. It's a fantastic product. We highly recommend it. So yes, UV lights are great. They only take maybe about an hour to install, and it's a great product for the customer to have healthy, clean air.
That technology has been around since the late to mid, actually, 1800s. Back in the 90s, when I was in business myself, I looked into UV lights back then. I don't think they were as good as they are today, because now then you can get much smaller UV lights that seem to do the same thing that we used to think we would have to do with a bank of UV lights.
And we used to have to change the bulb out every year. Now it's every 2 years.
Yeah, you can even get them as long as 3 years. So, I mean, that's a cool thing to do. But one more time, just like we were talking earlier about filters, please, please, please don't be out there selling UV lights. Informing people about UV lights is the thing that we need to do. We do not need to scare people.
Right.
I just can't stand the thought of I always think about some little old couple, who was trusting and believes that young man because he was so nice and he liked my brownies. And, and so they wound up buying paying an inflated price on a UV light. Our industry is about caring for people and supplying health and safety needs, and taking care of folks, not selling. Yeah, we got to make a profit, but we've also got to take care of our customer.
The Attorney General also said you cannot mark your price up more than 10% from what it was before. Otherwise, that is price gouging.
Another thing that is interesting is in terms of making sure that you have adequate ventilation in a home. Those of you in the heat and air industry know that we have been commissioned by the mechanical code over the last year or so that we had to put in mechanical ventilation. That is one of the things that you can make sure is adequate within a home, because again, you are diluting the presence of any airborne virus in the home, and that's a good thing to do. So making sure that's there. You know what's crazy is that I've never really quite understood why we put such a big deal on that. And now then, with this, I'm saying,
it comes around full circle.
It's starting to make more sense.
That's right.
HV, we didn't even know what the V was in our name for a few years ago. But now we understand it's ventilation.
And I would say 90% of the homes out there today do not have fresh air ventilation. So that's a big market that can be tapped in right now as well to help all of our customers.
And again, make sure your customer understands why you're doing it, what the potential result will be for them, and make sure that they understand that, if they have the least bit of uncomfort with that, if they're not comfortable, you're going to be in business for a long time, and you can talk to them next month or the next season. We want to make certain that their kids don't come home and talk to mom and dad or grandma and grandpa and think that we took advantage of their parents or grandparents.
Right. We can set the dampers on these manual or automatic to make the home comfortable as you want it. But the fresh air needs to be in the home just for safety reasons as well.
Teresa also responded and said, make sure that the alcohol you're putting in your formula for your hand sanitizer is 70%. She's a smart lady.
We need to hire her.
Yeah, exactly. And Howard says stores are out of alcohol. I don't know. Will bourbon work?
Well,
I'm just asking.
I think if you go to northern Arkansas, you got some good alcohol up there.
Well, that's a good point. It says if you are lucky enough for the filters to grab the virus, then guess what? The virus is still on the filter and now more concentrated. So filtering is not all it's cracked up to be. Brian, you're absolutely right. The more concentrated any particulate is, whether we're talking about dust or dirt or virus, the thicker it gets, the better it does at filtration, and therefore the better it does at collecting whatever's trying to go through it. You're right. That's what did we say a while ago? It's not the silver bullet. It's not the thing that's going to solve everything.
The washable filters, we've gone over this time and time again. You wash them, you get about 90% of the dirt out of it. You put it back in. Next month or two, you wash it again. You get another 90% out. After about 6 months, how much dirt is still stuck in there and in a clean filter?
Absolutely. So, years ago, everybody got on the bandwagon of the electrostatic filter. And after about 2 or 3 years, we realized, we might not have been doing the best thing that we should have done for our customers. So, hey, we're not the smartest people in the world. We're just trying to be.
But we have formulas to check air drop, pressure drop, and then we have products that are meant for each system. So do your research, do your homework, and put the correct return filter system inside.
Got a good friend up in Northeast Arkansas. Carrie says that they on Monday started asking health questions. Says if the customer objects, my guys and myself will ask to be excused. Makes sense to me.
I agree 100%.
We talk about the tech, we talk about the homeowner, and we know we've got to take care of the homeowner. But one of the most valuable things you've got in your company is the technician. You all know how hard they are to come by. So we've got to take good care of each other, because what happens if all of our techs get sick? then nobody can get their heating and air conditioning fixed. In the same way, what happens if all the doctors and nurses get sick? Nobody is at the hospital to take care of you. The people who are on the front lines of caring for Arkansans must also be taken care of. That's not a selfish position. That's a position that says, hey, we've got a lot of other people we need to help take care of as well. The last item that we had that we skipped over a while ago was to consider putting together a survey. Ask your homeowner how your technician did. Did they ask about the booties? Did they ask about the face mask? And if it was permissible, did they wear them? Did they wear them properly? Make sure that you know that the customer perceives that their health and safety is just as important as the temperature in their house.
Always a follow-up call after your technician's been there. All you're doing is checking up to make sure the customer is happy, and if there was any questions or concerns that you could answer.
I'm looking here. Go ahead.
Is our business, and if business is going to be, say, our state, Texas has been locked down, Louisiana has been locked down, other states have. Arkansas has not, thank goodness, and air conditioning season is now. If we go into a lockdown state, is our business a business that's going to be able to still function?
Are we considered an essential business?
Yes, that's what I'm
All
asking.
right, let's talk about that because there are multiple positions that I've heard in the last few days. I can tell you that the Air Conditioning Contractors of America are still carrying the torch, saying that it's not certain unless the governor in the state says that it is. Why? Because the feds came down with an edict about essential businesses and what you should do in a lockdown situation. And they included plumbers and they included electricians, but they did not name our industry.
They didn't name it exactly, but I did get on the government's website here in Arkansas, and like you said, electricians were on there, plumbers were on there, but then if you go to the next sentence, it says any trade that is going to help keep a business up and running or the safety of the people in that home or business.
And it just makes sense. The heating and air conditioning industry qualifies very much so. However, the governor's office still has to say yes or no. I was on the phone with their office today. They are going through lots and lots of people who are making applications for it. So my suggestion to you would be to contact your state legislator, contact the governor's office, and also go to ACA's website. We have a link on our website, and fill out that letter to make sure that they know that you know how important your job is. The heating and air conditioning industry is critical to our life in America.
Everybody's life. We use it every day.
We have time for just another question or two. We'll see whether or not we can pull them up here. Let's see. It says, do you recommend to continue running preventive maintenance calls during this crisis or only run breakdown service calls?
We're running business as usual, and as usual as that can be. So we're doing service calls, we're doing spring services, we're doing installs. Again, you have to call and talk to the customer, see if they are healthy, if there's any issues there. Prepare your technicians with all the safety gear that they possibly could use on the job: face masks, gloves, disinfectants, and hand sanitizer. This is our bread and butter. This is what we do, and we're trying to make people's homes and businesses where they can be comfortable and healthy. So yes, I say business as usual.
As long as the people have not been diagnosed with COVID-19, as long as they have not been around anyone with COVID-19, I think it's fair to assume that it's a safe place to go. One of the messages I got via the health department today was that if you were comfortable wearing a mask, then probably you should wear a mask. But other than that, they didn't seem like it was that big of a deal unless somebody had been diagnosed with COVID-19. So, I think we can continue to operate businesses as usual, but these are thoughts. These are not, these are my thoughts, your thoughts, right? They're not recommendations. You've got to do what you think works for your company.
And when I say business as usual, that's with safety procedures installed. So you
We're
want
at
to
a-
make sure that your technicians are safe, your customers are safe, your office personnel is safe.
We're at a point that we're going to wrap this up because we don't want to bore you to death, but we'll say this. If you have interest in additional information on this, and we will, as things roll out, give you more information, please stay in touch with us via the website. It's arhvacr.org, arhvacr.org. Or if you'd like, you can call 501-487-8655, 501-487-8655. We'll be glad to take as much time as we possibly can to answer your questions and just sort of, I don't know, sometimes just kind of vent, to let each of us be able to have an opportunity to say what you're feeling like. And then again in the fall, we'll be back doing this same sort of Facebook event, doing code training along with the Department of Labor and Licensing. We're excited about doing that. And then lastly, I think we need to find a way to have some humor. Some of the funniest things that are on YouTube right now are about this. And it's always good like a medicine. So find a way to have a merry heart, give God credit for all the good things that go on in your life, and do what you always do. Serve your customers and support your technicians. Thank you very much. Again, this is the Arkansas HVACR Association, and we look forward to talking to you the next time.